You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. In this show, we go beyond the campfire stories to bring you firsthand encounters from people who say they've seen something impossible, from backwoods trails and remote mountain haulers to quiet farms and crowded highways. The stories come from everywhere, and each one leaves us with more questions than answers. These are the voices of the people who've lived it, so settle in, because today you'll hear another account that just might change the way you see the woods forever. So stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, I've got the privilege of talking to Dave Osborne today. Dave's an individual that I met out at Sasquatch Summerfest in Oak Ridge, Oregon this year. And I invited him onto the show today to share a little bit about his Bigfoot experiences he's had over the years, but a little bit to know about Dave. He's a retired teacher and therapist. He's also a full-time musician as well as a Bigfoot, paranormal, and UFO enthusiast. So welcome to the show, Dave. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really, really good. How about you?
Having a great day. It's always fun when I'm able to talk to someone about Bigfoot, which is what I do.
I hear you.
And I love it.
I hear you there.
I love it. And the Midwest is starting to cool down a little bit, so can't complain there. But is your dog with you too?
Oh, they're here at the house. Yeah, we're getting ready to pack and go to see my son, daughter-in-law, and grandkids for 5 days. He's a football coach and a minister, and the kids play soccer, and there's a birthday. So we got a whole bunch of family stuff kind of rolled together here. I'm taking a step out of my music studio for a few days, but I'll be bringing my guitar, banjo, mandolin, and all my songwriting stuff with me to creative process moving along.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I used to be, this is a side for a minute, but I used to be big into mandolin music with
really?
Nickel Creek back in the day. Not that I played it, but I just loved listening to it. It was it's good stuff. But Dave, I know a little bit about you, and I was able to hear enough to know that you have some really interesting things that you've gone through. And let's start with this. What was it that first got you into the Bigfoot field to begin with? Was there a certain experience that kicked things off for you?
Oh, absolutely. It was when I was a little kid, finding out about the Patterson-Gimlin footage. I was just blown away. A little kid here, a young man. I wasn't even a teenager yet. And maybe it was in Southern California, and hearing about this big hairy thing. There, the interest just grew. So it always had it in me. And then when I was about, in my 30s, that's when I decided I got a Jeep. And we were way down far away from Northern California, but I started making trips up to Bluff Creek and snooping around and meeting people. And way back when, that's when Al Hodgson still had his store, and I'd come in and ask him questions. He kind of could take me off on the slides, let me tell you what's going on. And then one time he kind of pushed me off on his son. We went hiking back in the wilds together, and spent some time hanging out there too on the reservation. And just me. It was, like I said, I was just a kind of a wide-eyed adult, just fascinated with the whole phenomenon itself. Like, my God, could this really happen? And so it was always kind of with me. And then I kind of, when my son turned about 10, that's when we got a trailer, and I decided I wanted to get out with him and do more things. And so we started slowly going I wrote a book, it's called Bigfoot Light, and it's kind of about our early adventures together and also about our sighting. So.
When you had those trips you were taking to Bluff Creek, just for context, was what approximate years would that have been?
Let me think here. So I know Al Hodgson still had a store, though. It was getting close. He was always getting close to focusing it. So I was in my 30s then. So let's see, 2 years. We'd probably be in that. Let's see. Give me a second here. I'm kind of doing the numbers and calibration here from my birth date.
You're good.
Let's see. So I had to be about, I'm guessing in the late 80s is when I kind of started going up there, because I know he still had a store.
Okay.
I bought some of those original John Green books.
Oh, wow.
From him.
From Hodgson? That's awesome. My goodness.
Yeah.
That is cool. Because I've also interviewed an individual who was checking out the Bluff Creek area. His name was Rory Zorb, but this would be in the 90s, so a little bit after you
You know what? I actually went out with Rory one
No
time. I
way.
know exactly what you're talking. I know exactly who you're talking about. Rory Zorb. In fact, Al Hodgson, he passed on Rory Zorb's name to me, and he was way too, what's the word, rugged for me. I mean, he went out for like weeks at a time. And of course, I was still working, and I couldn't do that. But we did. I know at least spend one day together. So.
Oh wow. So Rory reached out to me and I was the first to be able to get his story recorded of what he went through. And he sounds like he's an incredible guy. He's riding his motorbike throughout the hills, and he's just a cool looking dude. So were there any interesting things that happened when you were able to go out with Rory that day?
He had actually just come back. Maybe the same experience you talked about. He had just come back from what had just happened to him. That's why I guess he came and talked to Hodgson about it and stuff.
I remember he had some very close cougar calls. There's some cougars that got very close to him. I remember that.
That's I remember that now. Yeah, you're right about that.
So then you got the trailer and you're able to start going out with your son, correct?
Right. And I kind of just, back then I was pre-internet almost, if I remember correctly. And so most of the information was from books and word of mouth and stuff. So we started going to places where I'd read that there'd been some things that had happened, and we didn't really have anything happen on our own. And then one time we were supposed to go on a week-long thing up to Bluff Creek. It was a big place. There was one of the original forums that came to be that was a Bigfoot forum. It was called Bigfoot Forums. I think Brian Brown was the guy that started it. And it was the first time I was ever around people, a collective group of people that were into Bigfoot and had information. So the expedition kind of came out of that, but like most Bigfoot things, some people seem to want to organize and they all start falling apart pretty quickly. But
right.
So that did fall apart, and my son was just all pumped up to go out and look for Bigfoot. So I was able to get connected with Bob and Kathy Strain. Are you familiar who they are?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, they said, well, why don't you go up to this? In fact, I probably should keep the name of the campground quiet. I could general area, but between Strawberry and Twain Harte, there's a campground off the road that goes up there, and supposedly there have been a lot of things that had happened there. So we were supposed to go up there and meet another person. I think it was Tom Yamarone, and he was going to meet us up there. And so we were going to spend a few nights, and Bob McCaffrey would come up like the last night. We're going to do some call blasting and stuff like that. So it was really interesting. The first night my son and I got there was nobody in the campground. It was just nobody. It was just, and it's like 10 miles off the main road. It was like just nobody at all. But there was like a host car, but I didn't see anybody there, like a host, trailer. And then like late afternoon, we'd set up, and in the late afternoon, this lady kind of came out of the trailer, hopped in her car and left. And so we were the only people in the campground. And then later on that night, campground goes like way back, like the road with all the campsites goes back like a quarter of a mile. Way back. We were in front. And later on, like an RV came back in the evening, work out dark. But basically, it was just us where we were, and the RV was so far down and out of sight, couldn't see it. And it was kind of spooky that night. And the first night I was there, you're there. There was this interesting, at the time, like I said, I wanted to believe in Bigfoot, but I just wasn't sure. And at that time, there was kind of like I woke up 2 in the morning and heard like this whistling going on. And it kind of on both sides of the trailer. I thought, that's kind of weird. What's this whistling? And didn't think much about it. And in the morning, we went outside and found some really big footprints right by our trailer. And then on top of that, my son found some footprints across the creek, which were later verified by everybody as Bigfoot footprints. And then that next day, we went out driving around just looking for stuff. And I didn't even know what a tree break was. And the only time I ever saw tree breaks around that area was just this one time. But there's these tree breaks all around our campground, up and down the roads. And so we thought that might be more signs that we were in the proximity of the guys. And then what the captain was, and this is kind of where the story really begins. The last night, we went to this little curve out in this mountain road. It's how should I describe it? They've kind of cut it off now. There's not so much to it. There's a real big area you can just kind of pull out with your cars, and it's through there, and it's called the Clavey River Basin. And basically, it's a really steep, super steep like canyon that just the river's carved out over the years. And there's really not any easy ways in and out, but one of the egresses out of this area is right where the pullout is. So Kathy and Bob met us up to that last night, and we did some call blasting, and we didn't hear anything. But as the night wore on, Kathy and Bob and everybody pointed out there was eye shine through the trees, and sure enough, you could see this eye shine that was moving through, and hear a little crack and crunch once in a while. And so they were throwing spotlights on them, and we couldn't see anything, and so they pretty much was decided. Of course, I didn't know this, everybody else so well. When you spotlight them like that, they usually take off. So I thought, okay, well, at least we had a little bit of excitement here. And so what happened? Everybody's sitting around and having a few beers and glasses of wine on our little kind of like circle of cars we kind of put for protection. But I read somewhere in one of the books, or my early Bigfoot books, that a lot of times Bigfoot will come and circle back around you, come back from behind you. You won't know it. And we were just about, not even, maybe 40 yards from the road at the most. So, and the road kind of does a big curve right there. On the other side of the road, there's like an embankment, maybe about, I'm looking at my roof here, probably about maybe 12, 15 feet high. It's not real high. And I walked back. I thought, I'm just going to go back behind to see, because the way they supposedly we lost in the trees, they obviously were coming up out of the basin there, and we're trying to come up into the higher areas. So they had to come out somewhere. Maybe they're back over here. So I just walked back over the road, and it was just pitch black that night. I mean, there's no moon or anything. And I look up, and kind of to the right of the embankment. I mean, we're talking about if you can imagine, a 2-lane road. How wide a 2-lane road is. It's not very wide. So I'm on one side of the road, and then the embankment goes straight up, and I look up, and I see these two sets of eyes looking at me, and they weren't critter eyes. They weren't circular, and they didn't glow. They were like, always told everybody it was like an almond-shaped eye. And I'm going, and I kind of hit me. I thought, I think this might be who I think it is. And of course, I read in books that says, when you go out and do that kind of stuff, if you take your eyes off them, they'll be gone. So I just basically just froze, and I thought, okay, I'm not gonna do I'm not gonna move or do anything at all. And so I just stood there, and I'll get to how long I was there in a few minutes, because I thought it was just a few seconds. It was much longer, but anyway, I'm staring at these things, and then you can see the eyes kind of slowly blink off and on, each one kind of, but you see the eyes kind of close and open. And then once, actually happened twice, but the first time happened, I was still by myself, and I heard this thing kind of go, kind of like the sound of like how horses and bulls will kind of blow air out of their mouth and kind of flap their lips. It was really loud. But they were up there just standing on their ground, and I was just looking at them standing on my ground, and I didn't feel threatened. I was kind of like, when it did that, I was kind of trying to figure out what I was looking at. But after it did that, I thought, okay, I know exactly, based on earlier today. And so eventually my son runs up and he goes, Dad, shh, shh, shh. And in fact, if you go on Spotify, my first album, I went under David Osborne, switch, but my first album is called Songs for Omaha. And it's all Bigfoot songs, but written in such a way you wouldn't know it's about Bigfoot. But anyway, the cover photo is actually done by a really famous guy named Daniel Falconer, who is a good friend of Bob and Kathy's, who was out with us several times. And he basically does some artistic liberties, but basically the cover photo pretty much, the cover of the album shows exactly what happened. And so Jake comes back, and they're there, still, and he's there with me, and he kind of makes that same sound, sound again. And people often ask me what it felt like. I said, I said, if anything, I felt like maybe they're a little bit irritated, but I didn't see it as a thing. So he runs back, gets Bob and Kath and everybody, and they come back. The weirdest thing was they threw spotlights on where they were. It was like they just vanished in the thin air. They weren't there. It was the weirdest thing. And so the next day, we went back, but we all had to go back home and kind of did traces. of where they might have come up out of the area. We realized they came up out of the basin behind these trees far enough down the road that we couldn't see them, and then walked up this embankment, and you can kind of see where the it was a lot of dirt. It was like really sandy up there, so you really couldn't see the footprints really well, but it was really clear that, you know, some big things kind of walked up through there and were there. And so, but anyway, I actually, this book I wrote called Bigfoot Light, which was about my son and I going out and you know, doing stuff together. I've written that I thought maybe I was there maybe a minute or two before Jake came to look for me. And we were recently talking about it at his house. And he goes, "No, Dad," he says, "So the reason I was scared and came looking for you, you were there like you were gone for like 10 or 15 minutes after you left the campsite." So people talk about, you know, losing track of time, you know, when you're around a Bigfoot. I mean, I could have sworn it was maybe a couple minutes, but it was like 15 minutes at certain point. So that was really kind of a trip. And so that at that point in time, I kind of said, even though I'd always been a kind of a Bigfoot enthusiast, we'd gone out enough times before that, and myself over the years had never found anything. I was pretty much ready to call it like, yeah, this is not really happening. So that was what really kind of turned the whole thing around for me 180 degrees, made me a full-fledged believer and enthusiast.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible. And it's in a really interesting area. Something I am making sure the listeners know is that if you go to the podcast website, which is BigfootSocietyPodcast.com, there's a sighting map where I try to put general locations where episodes are referred to so you can follow along with it, guys. And the area you're talking about right here is pretty much West Sierras, right?
Oh, Western Sierras, absolutely. I think it's the Stanislaus National Forest, if I'm correct. Yeah.
So,
and it's kind of I'll say that much. I've heard people at conferences kind of whisper in place. They go, "Hey, people kind of get together those conferences, and nobody wants to hear their conversation out there." People go, "Yeah, it's really under the radar place. You should go to Stanislaus National Forest." I say to myself, "Yeah, they're right about that." Most of my major experiences have been there, I'll believe it or not, or in California. But yeah, I mean, sometimes I've gone up to Oregon and Washington, do stuff with people, and I have a great time. But I found in that area has been where I've had most of my kind of heavy duty experiences. It's kind of like, oh yeah, this is the real deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you keep going up, towards the Sierras, you've got, we've heard from people around Sonora Pass, also an individual, the Marine Corps Mountain Warfare Training Center is up there too. And then you go south, and that's Yosemite National Park. And we've heard about Buck Meadows and Mariposa area, and that whole area is just really, really wild. But did you ever go back to that area where you had that encounter happen?
Oh, I've been there many times, yeah. In fact, I was just looking at one of my casts. Let me go back in and look for it's an interesting story. My friend, the guy I mentioned, the artist Daniel Falconer, he's from New Zealand, does a lot of the artistry for the Hobbit series. He was up there a couple of years, and we all got together. And we went up to the same area to kind of stop. It was daytime. We did some call blasting, and I think we went in the daytime to see what it looked like. And we stopped there, and I don't know, it's like I have this sixth sense about me about things sometimes, but I thought, I want to walk down to where that thing crossed the road and came up on top of this little embankment, where there's two of them. I want to see if I see anything. And I'm walking over, and up on the embankment, I see this footprint with toes. Yeah, here he is. Yeah, you got it, 7/26/11. So my sighting was in 2004. So 7 years later, 7/26 footprint by embankment, Western Sierras. So I went there and I saw that, and I thought everybody's way down 100 yards. So actually, along the side of the road, I kind of put some rock markers so I didn't lose it. And I came back with Bob and Kathy, everybody. I said, "You guys," I said, "I found something down here." I said, I want your opinion, what do you think about it?" And everybody walks down. Bob's eyes get really big. Kathy goes, "Way to go, Dave." She goes, "Yeah, that's exactly what we think it is." So we found and we kind of got tracked from that footprint there, and we could see where they had come up out of the basin area and kind of crossing the road, and you could see some real solid footprints. They weren't like I said, the ground there's not like the classic place where you find a nice footprint and mud, and you can make a nice perfect cast. They weren't, in that kind of element that you could do a good cast. We still did casts anyway. And so anyway, that kind of almost reaffirmed to me, it did reaffirm me that my mind wasn't playing tricks with me, for it wasn't a figment of my imagination, that what I saw, was what I saw. And if anybody wanted to question it, that's fine. They can go screw themselves, because I always tell people have experiences, and I hear people kind of putting them down. They kind of backtrack. I said, don't apologize for your experiences. If you had that experience, it's a real experience. Don't let anybody take that from you. You're an honest person like me, and why would I have any reason, to make up, or fantasize an experience just to make myself feel better? No, I'm really the ultimate skeptic, because, like I said, as much as I believe in UFOs, I've never seen anything that qualifies as a UFO, in my opinion. But I would love to see one. But to this day, when I see anything that's questionable, my scientific mind goes straight into a process like, okay, what could this be? Not what is it that I want it to be. So I stand belief firm on my experience that what I experienced that night was real. And like I said, subsequent things have kind of backed me up on it over the years too. We've done some really cool call blasting up there, and I remember the same lookout area one year. We were doing some call blasting there from that little point there. It kind of looks out over the basin. And all of a sudden, to the left, way deep down the basin, we heard this. Oh, this is after call blast. You hear this. Oh, and then all of a sudden, you hear this tree knock really loud. Bam, 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 and almost like maybe 100 yards over here, a different one. Bam, bam, bam. So I've just had a ton of experiences up there, kind of like that. That kind of go, all right. This is exactly what we think it is.
Oh, that's incredible. And you're right. That is one of those areas. It doesn't really come up a lot recently, unless I might just not be talking to the right people, but there's definitely activity going on in there. So you've done, I guess, going out into the field in different parts in California. Have you checked out other states as well over the years?
No, I met through a Beachfoot. Are you familiar with Beachfoot?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I got invited to Beachfoot about 11 years ago, and that really opened up the floodgates for meeting a lot of people. So I did some work with Dan Lindholm, who's pretty well known up in his target area. Daryl Adams, who's very well known. He and I we're like totally different people, but we just hit it off because our perspectives on Bigfoot and the paranormal were just so lined up with each other. But so I did a lot. He and Toby Johnson. I never met Toby till this summer at the Bigfoot thing. Daryl always talked about Toby and what he was doing, but I never ever had the experience of meeting him. So, but anyway, you had the Owl Moon Project, I think it was called, and so I did a lot of stuff around Daryl's old house right there. It's just outside of Eugene, Oregon, but it's just the funkiest little area. First time I ever saw what I knew for sure were orbs was there. Daryl, I had an area where he was gifting and feeding them, and just a lot of stuff like that, up there in the Oregon and the Eugene area. That was really pretty cool.
Okay.
And boy, like I said, it's been up to Washington. I think I was up there with what's the guy's name? He's the retired vet, Kevin
Llewellyn.
Yeah. We went up to that lake everybody goes to up there that always yields results.
Bumping Lake.
0 results. Bumping Lake. I would say my main area of focus is in California, Oregon, Washington. But I feel like overall my best results, believe it or not, have been in California.
So when you went and you got to hang out with Daryl Adams, are you talking about like the Owl Moon Wilderness area around Cottage Grove? Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I said Eugene. I'm sorry, Cottage Grove.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, I was like saying, yeah, exactly. It's Cottage Grove. Yeah, that was fascinating. I was up there, I think, 2 different times, and I just pulled my camper up to his house, and we do stuff in the daytime and stuff at night. But yeah, it's a fascinating. It's just probably the spookiest place I've ever been to in my life. It was just an amazing place. You just get the creeps. But anyway, yeah, get back. It's the first time in my life I ever saw what I considered those little lights that are popping in and out. What are they called again? Orbs. Yeah, the first time I ever saw orbs was up there. And I'm kind of blinking my eyes, and I go, "Is that what I think they are?" He goes, "Yeah." And like, it was just the weirdest thing. You try to get close to him, they kind of move away. It was just, yeah. He had all sorts of stuff happen up there. I'm too bad he had to go. Yeah, that was a waste of business. You were guaranteed something strange was going to happen when you were there.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I've talked to Daryl. I've also talked to an individual that was in the same area in the 90s. And the cool thing is that he was saying the same thing. I mean, they both had accounts of seeing something that looked like an alien in those woods. Besides,
Yeah, I've heard that one. Yeah. Oh, I've said flying saucers, Bigfoot, orbs. I mean, last time I was there, we heard this barking and growling. It was pretty close. And Daryl was pretty convinced it was a dog man, but it spooked us out. And then we were driving back that same night. All of a sudden, there's big light appeared above us in the trees, following us for a while. It's you couldn't make up a better kind of scary horror movie, really, with some of the stuff that happens up there. It's just mind blowing.
it's a very, very weird area. I've never gone to it myself. I'm not sure if I would ever want to, just because of some stories I've heard. It can really, things can latch on to you. I'll say that from what I've heard. But when you went up to Bumping Lake with Kevin, did you have anything happen up there or see anything out of the ordinary?
Yeah, nothing. It was the most disappointing trip I've ever gone on in hopes of what could be.
That's funny. It is definitely an area where a lot of people know about it. And I've heard people that go there, they don't have anything happen. And I've heard audio come out of it. I've seen tracks. A gentleman showed me some tracks. I'm not going to mention his name because I don't think he wants it mentioned. But I mean, they had dermal ridges on them, which was super intense. So definitely an active area, but I think it's all about, when you go there, of course, and who knows. But do you have any, Dave, do you have any ideas about, any theories about what it is that we might be dealing with when we're talking about Bigfoot?
Well, since I kind of came up under Bob and Kathy's tutelage, they were very much flesh and blood. But along the way, I had some experiences that totally changed my mind about that. And I would say definitely I'm more on the, I guess you call it the woo factor now after my experiences. To kind of go beyond an easily, like, to me, that to say, oh, it's just another, mammal, large ape. I think that's, to me, that one doesn't work for me anymore. Maybe it works for some people, but based on my experiences, in fact, actually, at the time that the thing that happened to me actually is way just inside of Oregon. Ever heard of Bolan Lake?
No, actually. Did you say Bolan?
Yeah, Bolan, Bolan Lake.
Okay.
It's this experience, and this is what really changed me, this experience. I was still working as a teacher, and Beachville was like middle of June, so I only had a few weeks to get ready to go on the trip. And so I was all excited. Summer's here. Let's get going. And so I have my two dogs who both passed now, Jet and Wendy. I'm a labby guy, so I've got two more here now. But we hopped in the camper and we were going up the Beachfoot. And so I had talked to Cliff Rothman one time about any good places to go, look for Bigfoot. He goes, Bolan Lake. So I did my research. And let me tell you, it's a pilgrimage to get to that place. Like most good Bigfoot areas, it's just off the side of the road somewhere. And, so I drove up there, and I was excited. I think we're going to spend 2 or 3 nights up there. I can't remember. It's just me and the dogs. And once again, it was nobody there, not a host, nobody the whole time. And we had no sooner gotten in there, and the fog just came in. It's like a high-level fog up the mountains. The whole time we were there, that fog just stayed there. And during that period of time, I had some of the strangest stuff happen. First of all, I'm a happy person, positive all the time. I got severely depressed. I could barely even eat my food or prepare my food. We were just kind of fogged in all day because, you couldn't even see, even in the daytime, you couldn't see more than 10 feet in front of yourself. So I let the dogs out occasionally. I can't remember the first or second night I was there. I woke up to this. I never have nightmares or dreams. I woke up to this terrible nightmare. It's like out of the Mad Max movie. My camper was surrounded by all these kind of weird guys that look out of a Mad Max movie. And all of a sudden my camper started shaking. And I remember waking up going, just cussing. I had my gun. My dog just kind of looking at me. And I really felt, you know how it is when you come out of a dream into waking up, if there's something going on, it kind of incorporates into your dream. That's kind of how it was. Like I was kind of being woken up by the camper being shaken. As soon as I woke up, it stopped. It was really spooky. But anyways, to make a long story short, we get out once in a while during the day just to take a pee or whatever. And then I think it was, because I have my notes down, but it's been so long now, but it was either that before that night or the night after, I went outside to take a pee, even though I could have in the camper. I was just going outside to check things out. Once again, pea suit fog. And all of a sudden I kind of have my headlamp on, kind of scanning around. And it looks like I see this eye kind of looking at me through the trees. What the trees were there, not too far away, really close. I'm thinking, okay, maybe somebody put a bottle cap in a tree. I'm just going to swing my light around like I didn't even see it and swing back. I swung back and it was gone. So I think something was looking at me. So finally, the third day we're there, we're getting ready to leave to go to Beachfoot. And I take my dogs down the road. Just there's like an old deserted logging road there at Bolan Lake. About the only other way you can walk around and do anything there. And my older dog's getting really excited, like she's picking up on some stuff. She's wanting to claw up this embankment. And I look, and here's the weirdest thing. I have my camera right around my neck to take any good pictures. And also on the embankment, there's this perfect little baby Bigfoot footprint. It was probably about, maybe I'm measuring myself, maybe 6 inches, maybe a little bit big. But it was like obviously a baby. It's almost like it was purposely put there for me to see. And I started to take my camera out, and I was going to take a picture of that. And my brain, like I said, it was almost like something was taken on my brain and says, "Oh, nobody's going to believe you, Dave. Don't even bother with it." So I didn't take a picture. So that was the year at Beachfoot when all the heavy duty people there, everybody's been on TV was there. It was like a who's who. I was camped between Peter and Dr. Bendernagel. They were my neighbors. I mean, what kind of guy's first year at Beachfoot asked for anything better than that, And then Cliff was there, Bo was there, all these people were there. I was camped out to these other guys. He's passed away since, I can't think of the guy's name. He was an Oregon guy. He tripped and fell on his porch and hit his head and died. Steve Lindsay. Yeah, Steve Lindsay or Lindy. Yeah, and I was telling my story, just like I tell you, and how impressive this was. Dude, you got zapped. I go, what? He goes, you got zapped. And he explained, what being zapped was. And it really kind of fit the format for what happened. I mean, I get up there, I'm in a good mood. And for 3 days, the weather's terrible. And I'm not saying the Bigfoot made it's a fog, but, it's an interesting coincidence. But yeah, I just couldn't eat, had no energy. And as soon as I left the area, I mean, within 5-10 miles down the road, I was myself again. So over the years, I've kind of put together what my concept is of what happened. I think we were up there, and I think there was a Bigfoot family, and they just had a baby, little one. I think they're being very protective of the area, and they didn't want me in there. And I think on the way out, this maybe is far-fetched, but on the way out, they maybe knew where I was going to be, and they purposely put a little baby footprint there to kind of show me why they're doing what they're doing. And that's the only thing I could come up with, That's the experience that brought me into the woo. And it took me a while to kind of process everything. I mean, to me, that was the only logical explanation that I could come up with, to be honest with you, of what happened, and one that made sense to me in some shape or form. And since then, I've had even more experiences to just kind of validate that perspective for me. That's the one that seemed to work. We'll talk about paranormal.
I do want to just clarify something in case people are curious.
Yeah.
The gentleman you were referring to, I believe his name is Steve Lindsay, and he was one of the gentlemen from the Oregon Bigfoot Highway book, that the group.
Right, exactly.
Of those
yeah.
individuals.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Joe gives him a shout out on there. I was going up to the camping area that I camped up in the Western Sierras, and I went to this, I guess I can tell you the name of this place. It's called Bell Meadows. And we did some camping there and looking around there too. And that's supposedly where Jeremiah Johnson spent a summer, and supposedly lots of weird things go on there too. And so the night I was going to try to get into Bell Meadows, but driving that day, I wasn't going to get far enough. So I stayed at a campground up in a little town
called Miwok, which is named after the tribe up there, the Miwok tribe. And once again, I have dreams, but I have certain dreams that I recognize are very strong dreams. They come from a different place in your normal dream. And the night that I was getting ready to go up and spend 2 or 3 nights up in Bell Meadow, I had this dream in this town named after the tribe, Miwok tribe. And in the dream, I'm inside a circle of elders, and you could tell they're all Native Americans, and you can't see their faces. It's dark. There's me and some other people in there. And basically, we're all pleading our case with the Native Americans that we're worthy of being around, Omaha, the Bigfoot. Oh, it's such a crazy thing. And I had these 2 large kind of op art kind of sculptures of these wooden ducks, kind of like modern art looking, not a standard looking, but kind of something you do if you kind of did a modern art thing. And I was pleading my case with the elders that I was worthy, to go and be part, of searching for Bigfoot, and that I would honor and respect them and everything. And they let me out. They granted me access out and said that I was worthy to do that. I thought, that's a strange dream to have here. So anyway, I went up there, and since I'd kind of gotten into the woo factor a little bit more, I decided what I'm going to do is, one of my friends says, you go, when you're there, you talk to them, you introduce yourself and let them know that you're there and that you mean no harm, that you are going to show respect and everything like that. So that's what I did. I went ahead and introduced myself, and I did it 2 different times. The first time I did it, there was just not that far up the hill, there was this big bam, 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 something on the tree. And all of a sudden, all the squirrels up there just went nuts for a while, And then the second day, something else happened too, similar to that. So I won't spend too much time on that. But the real kicker was, it was really cold that night. I just had one of my dogs with me, and I had a campfire. My dog wanted to go on the camper. So I was just sitting by the campfire, and I thought, wonder how cold it is here right now. It feels pretty cold. I wonder how cold it is. So I turn on. Are you familiar with have you watching those ghost shows where they have what they call the Mel meters, or electric energy? Okay. Well, in the middle of nowhere, you should get a 0 reading, on your thing. Well, anyway, prior to me turning that on, I heard a little rock go ping, like somebody just thrown a little pebble against one of the big rocks. It wasn't like anything rolling, like something had been thrown. Okay, that's interesting, But I didn't see anything. Well, I go to turn on my Mel meter, see how cold it was. And it's give me 97s, 98s. I took pictures of them too. I put them online years ago on Facebook. But I'm getting these huge, huge readings. And I'm actually turning it off and double checking. Just I'm going, okay, there must be something wrong with it. They just shouldn't be getting readings out here. Because people say, well, your cell phone could do that. Well, I have my cell phone off in my camper. I didn't have a cell phone on me. You don't have reception anyway. And so anyway, I basically kind of came to realization there was something around me. I just couldn't see it. I just said, hey, I don't know who you are, but welcome to my campfire. It wasn't like I could get in my truck and drive off, with everything in the middle of the night. So the next morning I got up and turned on my Mel meter, and it was a 0 reading. But yeah, and then another time I was up there hiking with a friend, we kind of got lost. We had a rock thrown at us against a tree, and he was like a total skeptic. And also we were coming back, and I was hearing this bam. It was real obvious, a rock hitting a tree about maybe 20 yards from us. I go, did you hear that? He goes, yeah. I said, you know what? Yeah. And I go, that must be a Bigfoot. He goes, oh, it's a Bigfoot. I said, well, we'll throw a rock. A deer, a bear. I mean, nothing else has the ability to throw a rock, But so that's happened up there on different trips. Like I said, every time I kind of go up in that area, I usually get I get some kind of payoff. Something happens. I never know what it's going to be. Sometimes it's little, sometimes it's big. But yeah, the whole area up there, between Strawberry and Twain Harte is loaded with Bigfoot stuff. And of course, that's where the hairy man graphics come from that are so well known.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. When you introduce yourself to the woods out loud, how soon after was it that you heard those noises?
Minutes. I would say 3 to 5 minutes at the most. It was really close together. It was very close together.
Gotcha. Oh man, that's weird. So when we were in Oak Ridge for the festival, I went out in the woods with some guys, and I tried that because I was like, I've wanted to try that. I should just try it because I know it's an active area. Dude,
Mhm.
I had the same. I said, hey, if you're out there, can you do something? And within like a few seconds, there were like 3 wood knocks out in the woods. I was like, I probably shouldn't be alone right now.
Isn't that trippy? You don't ask. Expect when you ask for something, don't be afraid when you get it.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. So you hit on another really interesting thing, which is that the pattern you find is that it does feel like there are times where something's there, you just can't see it. And it almost makes you wonder, is there anything that we could do to even see what's out there? And that's a whole quest in itself, like, is there anything we can do? I don't know.
Well, I know some of these Bigfoot shows are controversial, and I get it, and I'm okay with it being controversial. But a few of them, I think, I have to give the people credit. I think they're really trying hard to find new ways to prove that Bigfoot exists, and whether people agree with their methods or whatever, it's like, whatever we need to do, other than obviously hurting one, I think there's all sorts of possibilities.
Absolutely. You've had a lot of really interesting connections in the years that you've been involved with this. So I'm just curious, did you ever have any connections with Henry Franzoni over the years?
No, I spent some time. Tom Powell and I hit it off.
Oh, yeah.
One time at a beach foot, and we actually did some traveling together. My friends have a haunted house out in Taos, but he and I went to Mount Shasta, where I've had some weird stuff happen. We spent some time in Mount Shasta, and then he came back down, and we drove out to Taos, spent some time with my friends. But he used to talk about Henry Franzoni a lot, but I never met Henry. But I know Henry was really into doing that, taking his drums in the woods and doing stuff like that.
I never got to meet him, but I had some really good conversations with him, and he was a cool dude. What kind of things did you have happen up in Mount Shasta area?
Mount Shasta, I haven't had a whole lot happen there. It's just been more kind of the overall vibe of being there. I guess apparently there's a lot of portals right in the campground, because one time when Tom and I were there, there's this guy taking people through, and I guess Tom snuck around trying to see where the portals were. But, I know, that's what happened there. Like I said, okay, there's this one campsite I really liked a lot because it was a little bit bigger than the other ones. They're all pretty much spread out. But I'd had another ghost tool, which people use a lot of, the one where they can kind of talk to you, through the device. I got all that stuff in my camp.
Oh, sure. It's like static and words and stuff like that.
Yeah, but this other one isn't that one. It's the one where actually you ask a question, and there's you have a little handheld device, and a lot of times it'll answer you.
Okay.
And I actually wrote a song about it. It was called Spirits by the Fire. And I was up there one night by the fire, and I just kind of felt a presence. So I got the thingy out. And I'd been told by the people that had them that you have to let them sit outside for a while, kind of get used to the environment. And that's when the spirits will talk to you if they're there. And I can't remember exactly. Once again, it's just when I was writing a book, I've kind of switched back to music, so I haven't done too much writing about Bigfoot. But basically, I asked if there's anybody there with me, and it said, yeah, there's like 10 or 12 of us or something like that. It was kind of weird. I can't remember all the conversations, and then the next time I was up there, I was lucky enough to find a spot again. So I turned it back on. I said, is there anybody here with me tonight that was here the last time I was here? And then a word pops up, her.
Oh, wow. That's wild. Yeah.
That's a little bit too coincidental for me to not to see some random words popping up.
Absolutely.
The other strange experience I had, which really is kind of in some ways almost up there with my sighting in Stanislaus, was all these things always seem to come between my comings and goings from beach food. Maybe the vibe is in me is really strong, but I was coming home, and it was really hot down in Southern California. I thought, no, I'm going to spend one more night up here in Northern California. And up in Del Norte County, it's really hard to get access anywhere in Del Norte County just because it's so, so closed off to the logging industry owns everything. But there's this really cool campground just by the Klamath River, just off of 101. And it's just a beautiful campground. It's the nicest RV park I've ever been to. I mean, it's so green there that they let you pull up on the grass. That's where you park your camper, on the grass, And And so I was getting there kind of late, so I called into the desk. And I go, "Oh yeah, just park wherever you want." And they wanted to drag me to where everybody was. I said, "No, I got 2 tired dogs. I just kind of want to be away from everybody. Is there any place I can go?" He goes, "Oh yeah, take spot, I don't know, 112 or something." Like, okay, so I drove in. The office was closed. It's still daylight. Pull in. I put pictures on my Facebook page before, and I pulled the campsite. I thought, all right, this is my spot. And it says, "Beware, the creature known as Bigfoot has been sighted in this area before. Do not allow your children to go down to the river unattended." I thought, okay, I like this. This is good. So I had talked to Bobo at the conference, the Beachfoot, and we were talking about how to lure, Bigfoot in, with gifting. He suggested that they like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And I don't know if you told me this part, but somebody said you put them high enough off the ground, maybe that's him, that the squirrels and the bears can't get them. So he says, it can't be inside of your campsite. It's got to be far away where they can't see directly. You can't see them. So I put a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in a baggie, tied it. I had a little ladder, and I tied it up above this little loose limb so a squirrel couldn't walk out on it, and had it dangling up there. And the dogs were tired there, and the campers sleeping. I was just sitting outside having some Baileys and just enjoying the cool weather there, and kind of thinking, that's the last day I'm going to have any of this. And I was just getting ready to go to bed, and something said, "Why don't you stay out a little bit longer?" I thought, okay. So I'm sitting in my camping chair, absolutely quiet. All of a sudden, this big bright light just flashes down in the tree area, down where the food was. And I'm just kind of like, I'm thinking, oh, what's that? And I thought maybe somebody's got a spotlight, from the road or somewhere. And I looked all around, and there was nothing coming from the hills up there or the highway. I mean, as I looked at it closer, I realized that the light didn't really seem to have any source. It was just right on top of these trees. And it was like super bright, like those lights you see when these have premieres for movies. And so here's the weird part. I thought, oh, and then all of a sudden I hear crashing down below where the food is. So these are all happening simultaneously. The light goes on, all of a sudden there's big, something really big is jumping up in the brush. So I started getting from my chair. I jumped up from my chair. I was going to run down and see what's happening. And something said to me, "Don't go." It says, "Stay where you are. Otherwise, it's all going to stop." It's like something was just commanding me to stay there. So I thought, this is so I just sat down in my chair. And I doubt if the whole thing lasted more than 10 or 15 seconds. Might have been shorter than that, but probably 10 to 15 seconds at least, maybe half a minute. And then all of a sudden the light went out and the noise below went out, all like literally at the same time. So I was kind of going. So the next day I talked to the camp people. I asked if they had any light triggered lights or anything. "Oh no, keep it dark here." And so I told them the story, and they had just bought the place from the other guy. And they thought the guy was full of baloney, who thought he was just hallucinating with Bigfoot. So they weren't believers at all. But
oh wow!
So that was kind of a really interesting experience too. Once again, another one that kind of, and I talked to Tom Powell about that afterwards too, and he said that's not uncommon, especially in Native American area, which of course right there in the Klamath River is right there. That's all reservation land around there too. So it's not uncommon in the reservation area for the Native Americans, that talk about seeing strange lights when there's Bigfoot in the vicinity. So it's all.
That's really interesting. I've heard a few people talk about Jedediah Smith State Park, which is in the same county, I believe.
Uh-huh.
I had talked to a worker up at Ike's Pizza in Leesburg, Oregon, and she had some interesting things happen in that park. But yeah, it's a weird county because, as you said, I mean, you really can't get to most of it because there's not a lot of roads, main roads in there. It's mainly forest stuff. But wow, I mean, man, Dave, you have had some wild stuff happen over the years. You weren't kidding me. Oh, so you've mentioned a few tools that you use. Have you ever used a tuning fork out there?
No, I've gone out and played my music before, but I've never used a tuning fork.
Okay.
What's that?
Well,
how does that work?
So, allegedly for entertainment purposes only, there's a lot of people that are noticing that they are recording a certain tone in Bigfoot areas that's 40 hertz. And so some people started using 40 hertz tuning forks. And when they do that in certain areas, that same tone comes back at them from the woods, and it's just another weird thing, right?
Oh,
But,
wow. No, I haven't heard that one.
Yeah. So now, when you play your guitar out there, I've heard from a few people that you play your guitar in certain areas, and that can kind of kick off interactions too. Did you ever find that to be the case?
No, I've never found my guitars brought anybody in, although it's relaxing to me.
Right. True.
But no, I've never found that to be a tool. I think the best tool I've had is just going down and presenting myself, and just hanging out, just being the right. I always tell people, I remember one time when I was first starting to do Bigfoot stuff, and we were talking with some old timer was there. Now I'm an old timer, but he goes, Dave, he says, you don't find Bigfoot. Bigfoot finds you. I've always kind of been under that belief system,
Absolutely.
Like occasionally you read these stories of somebody comes upon Bigfoot and surprises them. Yeah, that does happen, obviously, but I think most of the time they're very well aware of us, and they make their decision what they want to do. If they want to scare us, show us a little bit of themselves, or just go the opposite direction.
Dave, I've got one more question for you. I just want to say thank you for taking your time. I know you're about ready to hit the road, so I'm very thankful of your time today. But let's say there's a person listening, they're new to the subject, and they're like, man, Dave's talking about all these cool areas. How am I going to find my own cool area? Do you have any advice about how people can try to find an area that might work for them to try to get an interaction going with Bigfoot?
Absolutely. I think what I did was the first place I actually went to was the BFRO. I started looking at the counties, like see where the most sightings were in the counties, and then you kind of drill down a little bit further, like where does it seem to be most frequent. The other one I think is even more valuable than that is just feet on the ground, get some conferences, try to get yourself known to people and get trusted by people, and they trust you enough with the information. They know you're not going to go out and blab it. And when you get that firsthand information, that's a great place to go. So yeah, I think researching, being an armchair researcher and just looking for areas that way, and then being proactive and going to conferences and Bigfoot get-togethers and networking and meeting people and trying to maybe get involved in a group of people that do things. Also reading Bigfoot books that are out too. I got a whole library full of Bigfoot books that have helped me a lot too. Just Joe Harte, he's a great guy. I love that guy. And whenever I go on the road, Bigfoot, I always take the Bigfoot Highway with me because that's a great resource for anybody, especially who's up in the Oregon area. To find. He's very specific about spots, and I've been out camping in a couple of places with him, the famous Tarzan Springs and some other places. But yeah, I think just researching book-wise, getting online, going out to conferences and meeting people and getting their trust, at least it'll give you some general ideas where to go.
That's fantastic advice. And Dave, thank you for your time today. Is there anything, if people, you've mentioned your music a few times and your book, what's the best way that people can track that down to listen to your music or to read your book if they want to?
Okay, well, my book's called Bigfoot Light, Lite, and it's really just more about, although I do have my encounter in there, it's really kind of more about my adventures, teaching my son about being outdoors and being comfortable looking for Bigfoot and not being scared. So that's my book. It's only in the Kindle form. You can't buy it as a hard copy. It's just and then my music is actually, well, if you want to hear the Bigfoot songs that are not really Bigfoot songs, but they are, you would go to Spotify or YouTube and look up David Osborne, Songs for Omaha. And if you just want to hear my actual music more recently, then you would just go to Spotify, look up Dave Osborne. And what's my last song I had on there? So I got so many songs that I'm trying to think. The Mirage. That seems to be doing pretty well. People seem to be listening to that a lot. So, yeah.
Well, fantastic. I'll make sure to have those links in the description show notes for people to check out easily. But, safe travels, Dave, and
yeah,
good luck in the future. Maybe, who knows, you'll have another, Bigfoot come across your path. Who knows? But it's been a pleasure chatting with you today, sir.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your interest in me. I had a great time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Every encounter we share reminds us that the world is bigger and stranger than we think, and that the truth is often hiding just beyond the tree line. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode, and share this with a friend who's into mysteries, monsters, or the unexplained. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, please follow the show there and leave us a 5-star positive review, because all that helps more people discover the show. And remember, if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot sighting, please, I'd love to hear from you. So email me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com and let's start the conversation. If you haven't gotten a chance yet, check out our membership community over at www.bigfootsocietypodcast.com. And that's where you can hear tomorrow's episode today, early and ad-free, and members-only episodes every week. Also, it's a place to connect with other people that are into the Bigfoot subject as much as you are. Thanks again for following along with the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there. And see you in the woods.